sorry.
These are the iron bars that are fastened around your hands if you're a violent offender. We are in the public jail at Colonial Williamsburg. Now here in this facility, men and women, free and enslaved, are housed who are accused of or convicted of felony offenses. Murder, arson, treason, counterfeiting, even your third offense of horse thievery could be a crime to bring you here. But to have these on your body, loud things, you have been guilty of violent acts. Welcome everybody, come on in. Come sit down for just a moment, please, welcome. I'm going to lay these right down. Sit down. Yes, please, come and sit down, So I'll just continue talking as this goes.
That's fine.
Now, please forgive me if I've asked you for just a moment, because this fine lady has come back for a little video. So we're talking about coming into the public jail. So why are you brought to prison? You've been accused of a serious felony, as we were talking about. You've been up to the general court, perhaps in the Capitol building, and seen where the felonies are tried. You most likely are male, though, because the serious point is, ladies, we have the capability of crime, but we don't have the opportunity. In the 18th century, our primary role is wives and mothers. And so as we participate in crime, it's usually at the instigation of some man, or perhaps we thought of something on our own to do, but not to point just to gentlemen. So here we are thinking about what it's like to be brought here from all over Virginia. You're housed in the prison cells. You're given food and drink once a day. You're given a place to sleep on the floor. And you're given medical treatment if needed. Now those shackles that I just had out, I'll pass to you in just a moment, they might cause chafing on the body. I might arrive here with some injury or wound. Well, we're a Christian society, so we will treat that, but we're not going to spend a lot of money on you. So one of the most important things about our public jail is no long prison terms. Why should the government pay for your upkeep for 2, 4, 5, 10 years? That's too expensive. In this time frame, if you are guilty of a crime, you are put to death, usually within 6 months of your arrest, trial, and then at the end of your conviction, when that verdict is cast in the courtroom, then you are remanded to the jail until the hangings occur. Now we're standing here on the public jail site, but about a mile from where we're standing is the hanging post here in colonial era. It is 3 posts in the ground where you're brought up on a cart, you're hanged by the neck until dead, dead, dead. And I'm not being silly, this is exactly how the verdict is read. And it is a slow, painful death. You are turned off the cart to do the fresh air jig, to pay the debt of nature. Are you familiar with these terms? These are all sayings in this time frame, to die by hanging. It's like in today's world when we say, oh, you know, that Pat Shelton, she's a brick shot at a full load, the light's on but nobody's home. Yeah, that's what it means to hang in the 18th century. So here in our capital city, these prisons are being used for this function, but the war is about to break out. Government is falling apart. Day-to-day government isn't functioning. And so local jails are becoming overcrowded. So as you in a few moments go back to see our prison cell, imagine the conditions. Sleeping on the floor, a basic diet of cornmeal mush, meat, and a few vegetables, and then you're going to the bathroom, the privy, right where you're sleeping and eating. Is that a healthy environment? No, it is not. Jail fever runs rampant. And that's a combination of dysentery, plague, pneumonia, maybe a little intermittent fever, that's otherwise known as malaria. And so people are dying in these prisons who are not sentenced to death from the diseases. Now, our jailer, Peter Pelham, was called in front of the officials to answer as to why persons were dying. And it is the conditions of this time. Remember, we're in a society where there's no antibiotics. How strong is your constitution? How well will you survive? That young man earlier was 90 years old. First thing I did, of course, was check his hands. Let me see yours, dear. You should see that. Oh, excellent. That shows she's not with any troubles. You are traveling in good company. You see, one of the jailer's responsibilities is to use these tools, the branding irons. Remember, M for manslaughter, T for thievery. These are the 2 crimes that if found guilty of, we won't hang you. We'll ask if you would like mercy in the court. Here, you'll be my visual aid. I'm the jailer. I heated up this M. You accidentally took the life of a human being. You didn't mean to. It was an accident. So hold your hand out. The fleshy part of the thumb is branded severely. It's usually, or you can call out, God save the king.
God save the king.
Excellent. And so now you're allowed to go home, whether you're a man or woman, free or slave. This benefit is offered to you as a second chance. And so if you ever come in court again and you have that brand on your hand, you will not be allowed a second chance. T for thievery, that's like a crime of taking a valuable material. Could be a necklace, could be stealing, 3rd offense, of course. So I wanted a chance to explain to you some of the serious crimes that have been going on here at the jail. And you ladies, come on in and sit down. We're just having a little discussion here with some friends. Mistress, the second question perhaps I could address. You could help me. Anything else?
Talking about how they worked at the time.
Thank you. In this prison, when you go to the back, again, we don't know if there were 2 people or 32 people in the space. Men and women weren't separated necessarily. Perhaps the document has been survived, and we haven't found it yet. But it also is a practical society where, if you are here for indebtedness, you owe money to other people, you might be housed for up to 30 days, but no longer, because you see the government wants you to pay your debts. Now let's say that you are my tavern keeper and I have a huge bill and I haven't paid you. You could go to the court and be incarcerated as a debtor, but during that time when I have to sleep here every night, you don't mind if I take my shoemaking tools and I go out and I earn a living shoemaking, and then all the money I earn would go to my debt and pay you off. Kind of a work release. It's also possible that if you're here for another crime, not indebtedness, maybe treason or arson or runaway slave, you might be taken as a work gang. Local tradesmen would come and sign out the prisoners and take them to a work site and then bring them back, especially the enslaved men that are here. Because in this time frame, slaves are a piece of property. They're paid taxes on, and if you can get free work labor and all you have to do is feed them, wouldn't that sound beneficial? Then you wouldn't have to pay taxes on them. That'd be like you want to take a trip, you want to rent a car, you don't have to pay for the gas or the insurance, just drive it and bring it back. Doesn't that sound like a good thing? That's what work release is going on here in our public jail. So our government, as in the colonial era, is always looking for a way to save money, to make sure that we're not spending too much to house those prisoners. So again, long terms, 5, 10 years in prison are not possible here because we have to pay for your upkeep. We have to keep you alive and healthy, feed and clothe you. No, that's too costly. We'd much rather that for over 100 crimes, if you're found guilty, you are punished if found guilty. And that means death by hanging. It makes a good example to the rest of the community. As you move to the hanging post about a mile from town, people would gather and watch these events. Why would you bring a child to see a public hanging? Teach you a lesson. Yes, ma'am, that's exactly right. We call it logical consequences in today's world, but in the 18th century, my child's looking at that act, that person broke the law, death was the consequence. Follow the rules, we won't have to face that one day. Hello, everyone. Well, pardon me if I interrupt my filming here for just a minute, but come on in, everybody. For those of you that have been in with me for a few minutes, why don't you step over and have a look here in the chamber. And I want to tell you that you are in the living quarters of the public jailer. Come on in, you folks look too. We just kind of have a running conversation going here. But if I get on this side, I can talk a little bit more. But have a look at this bed chamber and know that the jailer is a government official who's given a good salary and a place to live. And often they're family men and women. And so as the last jailer lived here, Peter Pelham, he had 8 children, 5 of which were living at home. And you see the bed for the little 4-year-old, Parthenia is her name. She's sleeping right there. Well, the second floor, where I cannot invite you to go, is where the other children slept. But this building is one of the original structures in town. The portion we're in was specifically added on for the jailer to have a living space. But the rear portion, I know the places you're most curious about, are the prison cells. And we'll go back there in just a moment. But as I was saying to the group that's been in here, prisoners are brought here, and what we don't know amounts to a lot of things. We don't know how many people stay in a cell. We don't know that they separated men and women. We do know from court records that there were more men participating in crime than women. Remember our role as wives and mothers. And then finally, as you go back to that space, imagine being fed once a day. You're sleeping on the floor, and the privy, or toilet, is in the corner. That's the 3 steps. It's called the throne. You ever heard of that? Where's Grandpa? He's on the throne. Yes, it comes from this time frame. And the one document I can go to describe the conditions was written by Henry Hamilton, a captured British officer who was brought here as the American Revolution broke out. And he wrote later that he called this the sweet prison. He was being facetious. And he talked about the awful food and the terrible conditions. Well, of course, you yourself have been exposed to Virginia climate, so you see what it's like here most of the time, hot and humid. And people were dying occasionally in those prison cells who were not sentenced to death, and it was from the diseases, from the rampant, as I said earlier, dysentery, a little plague, and maybe the intermittent fever, which is malaria, as you know today. question now. Now the questions, living space is pretty nice. Luxuries like plaster and glass, paid 50 pounds Virginia money as an annual salary, and you're given a place to live in. I tell my sons growing up in men, guaranteed income, that's a good job. But Mr. Pelham also has another government job. He is the organist at Root Parish Church. So if you get to visit that beautiful 18th century church, you're going to hear them speak of music he wrote to play there. And it said sometimes he took the prisoners to pump the organ of that church so that he could play. Because again, prisoner released for work was often a case there. Now, a question about something you see here. Oh, perhaps you saw this image. Now, many of my friends from the Carolinas especially know who this image is. This is Edward Teach. Do you recognize him? Of course, he had a nickname. His mama didn't name him Edward. He's known as Blackbeard, the Dread Pirate. Blackbeard was killed off the coast of the Carolinas. His crew was captured and brought here for punishment. Oh, come on in, honey. We have some chairs. Sit right down. And as we talk about this jail facility, his crew members stayed here until they went on trial for piracy. Now, piracy is tried in the Admiralty Court, which is a little higher level than the General Court of Virginia. The Admiralty Court is a regional court. And so back in 17 teens, when Alexander Spotswood, our governor, sent men to capture Blackbeard, as you know, it didn't go well. He died in a fierce battle. He was stabbed and beheaded, and just awful things done to the body. But he did not survive. But his crew was brought here, tried for piracy, 13 found guilty, and taken to the hangman's gallows about a mile from town and hanged by the neck till dead. 2 members were allowed to go free. One of them was Robert Maynard, who said, I didn't want to be a pirate. They forced me to be a pirate. He had more than 30 wounds on his body, so we knew he'd had a very difficult existence. They believed him. For those of you in my generation, perhaps you remember Patty Hearst. She had a similar career. She didn't mean to do it. She was forced to. And they believed her. And here, in this time frame, the other surviving member of the crew turned state's evidence. Israel Hands. He basically told them everything they wanted to know, and they allowed him to go free. Now, have you ever heard of that name, Israel Hands? Are you folks that like to read 19th century? Robert Louis Stevenson wrote a famous pirate novel.
Treasure Island.
Treasure Island, yes. And Mr. Stevenson chose Israel Hands as his character's name, but it was fictional in that time period, but it was not in our time period. Right? So, how's that sound? Are you enjoying it? Seeing the jail, seeing where the jailer lived? Now you'll notice we're kind of in a letter L. Here at the upper end, built in the 1740s, 17 teens here, and then by 1704 there was a jail cell in the back. Now we're kind of a small body. Would you like to see the original prison cell? Yes. Come this way.
Thank you.